Hey team, how are we doing today? I'm doing all sorts of new stuff today. And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. We will see. We will see. First off, can anybody hear me? And is it sound okay? That's my first question, because we had all sorts of issues last week getting things to work, and then like Bookworm wasn't working well, and I got tired of fighting, so I did. Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Carol. Thanks for the heads up. I was so mad after Bookworm because I could not get things to work well. So I did tons and tons and tons of rebuilding today. So here's hoping it all works. Kristen, Jacob, Matt, man, we got a team here. Everybody's struggling with procrastination, apparently. So yes, I've rebuilt my entire rig. We'll see how it works out. I hope it ends up being better. We'll see. All right, I need to stop talking about it. Welcome, Steven. I'm actually gonna go look at a house this afternoon. And I have pretty high hopes for it. Blake, welcome. Right this moment. I forgot to set up this thing. This is like the extra desk that I get from... Where's my notepad? I'm apparently not completely ready today because all my stuff isn't out. I'm good. Yeah, the house hunting is... Well, all right. So here's the deal. House hunting is less than fun. And I shouldn't say that. There's a lot of fun parts to it. And we've been super excited about some of the houses that we've been looking at. We're looking in the same area, Jacob. Like we're not going anywhere. So I'm staying in this area. But as far as a home office goes, Blake, we'll see. Because the houses we've been looking at, the particulars would indicate that we are not very likely to have decent internet at the places we were looking at. So that would mean I'm very likely to be staying here. So I'm going to have to figure out like something to put on that door over there so that people know when I'm recording, is what I call it, because they can understand that. So we'll see if I actually go into that or not. We'll see. I know I don't really want to stay here as far as like all this stuff. And I'm actually not buying at peak of price, potentially. That's the kicker. We sold at peak of price. The internet, I think, is potentially like 5 meg, so it wouldn't be terrible. Supposedly I can get 25 both ways there, which would be great. But I'm not. At the house I'm gonna go look at a house this afternoon, and that's what I think that particular house would be. The house that we just sold, we bought in 2011. So like the 2008 period that you're talking about. Like, well, I suppose it would depend on if you're talking about the crash of 2008 or the peak of 2008. The crash, we were still like trying to come up off the bottom of that when we bought that house. So Starlink, we did do really well on that house. So we're exploring buying something that needs tons of work right now because there's not as many people interested in those. But they're still overpriced, in my opinion. But you haven't had stable internet in ages. That's my concern. I don't know how well I'm going to do with something like that. I don't. I think it could be a problem if I'm in a spot where I can only get like 1 or 2 meg. But if I can get 5, I'm probably still going to have issues. I regularly, because I run the networking stuff on this computer, I regularly find myself using 25 to 30. Well, upwards of 60 and 70 at times. So I do find myself using that. But I know that I can tolerate a little less than that. Like I can tolerate 15 to 20 pretty easy. But you get beyond that, Joe starts to get a little antsy. Is what it is. Internet. Who knew we'd be so dependent on it? I'm still snacking. Anybody want a cookie? So yes, last week I was running the Bookworm stream and had all sorts of data issues with it. So I reconfigured everything to use a legitimate live stream encoder. It's like some kind of sugar cookie with icing and sprinkles. I don't know. It's good. I'll finish so you don't have to listen to me chew. What do you mean by that, Stephen? Everyone should be showing signs of ADHD in our tech-driven society. You need to eat. This is a good thing to do. Like, join the stream and eat lunch. Here's the thing about ADHD in our society today, right? Because I've been slowly getting more and more opinions on it. I'm starting to get like some thoughts collected around like ADHD being something where motivation and procrastination are actually like, it seems like those are more central than, how do you say, rather than symptoms. Like they're more in the core than they are on the outskirts. Does that make sense? So I don't know how much truth I think there is in this. This is definitely a exploratory thought process, okay? This is not something I'm going to say is solid. But it seems like because of the tech side of things and the knowledge work side of things, there's something with not being able to see the work you're doing that makes it hard to stay motivated for it. Does that make sense? Like, it just seems like there's some difficult aspect that comes along for the ride because we're doing so much knowledge work. And I think it makes things significantly more difficult than it needs to be. Thus, we see more and more ADHD people. I have no idea if there's any validity to any of this. This is just Joe's random thinkings on this. So I'm not sure. If somebody has thoughts, I'm all ears. I gotta put the tweet out. Done. Environmentally driven, not biologically driven. Maybe that, you might have something there, Stephen, but at the same time, I hesitate to say that. You have a long history of diagnosed bipolar, but you've been off of pharmaceuticals for 3 years. Good for you. I think that's good. Some people would say that's a bad thing, I think, but it's so dependent on your specific scenario. But the way you're saying that, I'm assuming that's a very good thing and something you're excited about. Anytime you had to write something for work, part of your struggle was not knowing what the end state would look like. Ooh. Now you're jumping straight to the difficult side of all this, Blake. Because now you're jumping into why certain things do and don't work. And that's a messy territory. I think there's sometimes it's nice to have an extra desk here. Sometimes it gets in the way. Okay, let me tell you kind of my history with all of this, okay? Because I don't think we've talked about this, like Joe's background with like school and my parents and how all of this came about. I don't think we've talked about this. Correct me if I have. So let's go back in time. Joe's in early elementary school. And well, let's just go all the way back to kindergarten, because I specifically remember some things from kindergarten into like 4th and 5th grade. Like I have very specific memories from things from those time periods. And I was that kid who everybody disliked because he aced everything on the tests and got amazing grades and ran curves up and all sorts of stuff. That was me. Up until sophomore year, okay? So all through elementary school, if I had anything less than like 99.99% out of 100 on my total grade for the entire year, welcome, Michael. If I had anything less than that, it was abnormal. That was just kind of my, and I'm not saying this to be a brag or anything. That's just the way my brain worked. And looking back on it, I know that is because for whatever reason, my hyper focus was geared towards school. So all of my classmates would have homework. I didn't, because I did it all in school. So the concept of taking work home for school was weird to me. I didn't actually have to do that until my sophomore year of high school. Now, either that is a dig on my school, the high school, which won a lot of awards for its schooling, but it seems like every school does. Maybe that's just my perspective. But either the school just wasn't great, or I was some weird kid, but I just happened to hyper focus on schoolwork. And I say up until sophomore year, because at that point I had a physics class that they wouldn't give you time to work at school, and that meant that I was forced to take it home, and I'd never done that before. That is the first class I ever got anything less than an A in, and I got a D in that class. Not so great. I was absolutely mortified over that, and it was bad enough that my parents went and talked to my teachers, like, what is going on? I'm like, I don't know. He's not doing his work. Because I didn't know how to do work at home and then take it to school. That was weird to me. Looking back on it, I can see all of the like hyper focus and inability to focus at home, and when I have the environment of being able to choose and do anything I want, it falls apart because I'm not well suited for self-directed work. And I didn't know that until I screwed up in sophomore year. I managed to work my way through high school, and was salutatorian of the class, and went to college, made my way through college. I forget what my GPA was. It was 3.2 or something. It wasn't amazing, but it was far from terrible. Some of that is just because, like, if I was doing work in the class, I did really well on it. When I had to take it back, I never did super well with it. And again, looking at it now, I can see some of those signs through that. But when I went to the working world, I went into soybean seed research, and the bulk of everything I did in that job was physical. We were planting, we were harvesting, we were organizing things physically. And then I got promoted into a role where I started doing like some data analysis work, and that's where I started to struggle. As soon as I moved into the knowledge work side of it, I struggled with it. Not at first, because it was new and shiny, but once the new and shiny wore off, then it was a rough deal. Am I the only one that's done this sort of thing? Like, surely there's another ADD person who did really well in school and then sucked it. Sucked it the working world afterwards. Welcome, Derek. Folks at the office have unmitigated gall to ask me to do stuff. What's with that? That should be banned, not allowed. So yes, once I started doing work on my own knowledge work type stuff, totally, Derek, I struggled with it. Now, the parts that I did do, I was good at, so I ended up being promoted and such. But what I found was that I quickly learned that I could get promoted and get into something new, which kept me focused on the thing, if I were able to automate and do things in a way that nobody thought was possible. So I started doing that every time I got a different job, and that meant that time I got to corporate, I could climb that ladder, mostly because I didn't want to keep doing my job the same way for more than about 6 months. So then I would get myself promoted into the next one so I didn't have to do it anymore. It's terrible, isn't it? It's so bad. All right, you guys are typing faster than I can read. You did well until high school, struggled in college. Not organized, not good at spending time on boring tasks. Yep. It's totally untrue that I'm currently checking your meetings for tomorrow. Okay. I'm not going to buy that. But here's some of the stuff that has carried over into today. Now, if you look at the job that I do now, this is like one of the best jobs I could have, because those of you who followed some of what I did whenever I worked for myself, and I did like ProCourse and the discourse development stuff, which I do still dabble with a little bit here and there. Whenever I've done that, it's fine when I have a new thing, but whenever I have to like power through and do it even though I don't want to, that's when I will find like this whole procrastination thing. I will come up with any and every potential excuse I can come up with, even as much as like if I can come up with some possible way that I could do a task in the future, I will put it off today. Like, for example, let's say that I have a code project to do for a client. I'm going to build their website, right? We're going to build it on WordPress. I don't build a lot on WordPress anymore, but that let's just say for example's sake, that's what we're going to do, okay? They give me a deadline of sometime this summer, which is not uncommon for a deadline, which in my mind means it's so fluid that I don't really need to get started now because I have tons of time. to do it. Now, we get to July. August comes around, like, oh, I still got time. You know, I will figure out, like, it only takes me maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks to put a site together, okay? And then, a little bit later, September rolls around. Like, well, you know, September's kind of still summer. School's on its way to start, and they kind of start in the summer. I'll be fine. I could start here in another week or so, and then I'll be okay. And then by that point, clients mad with me, and they usually leave. But I've just justified my way to later on. Not so great, huh? I got a couple packages at the UPS store. If I can find some possible way that I can do it in the future, I won't do it today. Which is so backwards from what we read in Bookworm and the things you learn. This is why, like, this article by James Clear, I think, is super interesting, because it has to do with, like, motivating yourself, right? So this is what I struggle with. And this is why, so, like, Analog Joe, take that example. Analog Joe, I feel like I do pretty well with. Not great, but I do pretty well with, because there are dates on a calendar and everybody is expecting me to be there. And when people expect me to be there, I'll be there. Like, if I have a date on a calendar, I'll be there. That's a pretty common thing for me. I won't have issues with that. Is it seeing myself as a person who starts things? No, I don't know that it's that way. I don't really see myself that way, even though that's true. I tend to see myself as someone who's really good at certain things, but I don't really think about it as a starter versus a finisher. And I think for me it has more to do with finding an out. If I can find an out, I won't do things I don't want to do. Or if it's too big of a thing. This is where, so we just finished reading The Now Habit. I gotta get out of this. I'm kind of moving around a lot today. I apologize. We went hiking a long ways yesterday, so I'm still kind of like stiff and sore, so I don't sit still real well today. That's why. Yes, I'm moving around a lot. It's only partially because of ADD. It's an obliger thing. The date on the calendar only gets done because there are others with expectations related to that date. You might have something there. I mean, I think that's definitely part of it. Despite what people say about that whole tendency construct being invalid. With the Now Habit, and I'm not going to talk about it a whole lot because we covered it in quite a bit of detail for Bookworm, but it's all about procrastination, right? And procrastination coming from like anxiety and overwhelm, and none of that made sense to me, because to me it's more like, well, I just don't want to. It doesn't have anything to do with being overwhelmed and just not choosing. It has to do with just not wanting to do things because it's perceived difficulty, or I think it's going to take me a long time and I don't want to take that amount of time to work on it. I think that's what's going on. Again, not 100% certain, because this is definitely something I'm still working through. I like Clear's article, though. He has a section called What is Motivation? And then doesn't really define it. Really? Let me look at it. I didn't catch that, but it's hilarious if that's true. Don't want to take the time is kind of overwhelm. Yeah, but instead of working on anything, I tend to work on like fun projects that I shouldn't really be spending time on. Like, what was it, last Friday? I don't remember what it was. There was something I was supposed to be doing, and I opted to play around with like the stream setup, which ended up biting me in the rear. And that was what I ended up spending my time on when I shouldn't have. It wasn't what I intended to spend my time on at all. What is motivation exactly? The author, Stephen Pressfield, has a great line in his book, The War of Art, which I think gets at the core. To paraphrase, at some point, the pain of not doing it becomes greater than the pain of doing it. In other words, at some point, it is easier to change than to stay the same. It's easier to take action and feel insecure at the gym than to sit still and experience self-loathing on the couch. Thus, motivation. I think is the essence of motivation. Every choice has a price, but when we are motivated, it is easier to bear the inconvenience of action than the pain of remaining the same. Somehow we cross a mental threshold, usually after weeks of procrastination and in the face of an impending deadline, and it becomes more painful to not do the work than to actually do it. You're right, he doesn't actually define it. I didn't realize that. But you're absolutely right. He doesn't define it. He defines like the essence, but he doesn't actually put terms to it. Okay. I'm with you on that one. That's a little weird. Which is not characteristic of James. That's a little odd, I think. But, you know, having just read a book on procrastination, and yeah, we did do War of Art on Bookworm. It's been a while back now, though. Procrastination, I think, it has a lot to do with, like, it's easier to not do a thing than to do it, or you're avoiding the results of doing it. Not characteristic of clear to not be clear. Totally. What was the... Oh, I've got it up there somewhere. I'm not going to go dig it out. You can listen to the episode on Friday for Bookworm. I just got a book. I just picked up a book by Dan Pink. Drive. My wife found it at a thrift store for $1. Or no, it was like 75 cents. That's a win. I think there's a lot of times when I put things off because it just seems... It seems... Well, here's some of my procrastination issue. Let's say I started working on a video for YouTube, all right? And I'm working on it, putting together script, collecting ideas for it, recording some snippets, grabbing some B-roll and such. I've done these things. I haven't ever really released one of those. And I think, and this is tied into my ADD of sorts. I think I have a tendency to not want to release those things. This is like crooked to me. I have a tendency to not want to release those things primarily because I have anxiety about the reaction to those, or I don't feel like it's good enough for what I can do. Like, I know I can do better than that. So there's a little bit of perfectionism coming in, not wanting to be judged coming in there. So then I will find excuses to not do it at all because I don't want to deal with that result. I think that's part of it, but I think you can extrapolate that out into a lot of day-to-day work processes as well. Like, I don't always get back to people in email because I'm a little nervous about what to say, not sure what to say. I think I said the right thing, but it's not. These are all the things that come to my mind. Thus, Joe procrastinates, and I don't release things near when I intend to, or what I intend to. Side note, this whole stream setup seems to be working well, which makes me happy. I feel like there's a lot of things we could talk about here. Some of the things that I am doing to help with this. You procrastinate when it requires you to think. Maybe that's some of what's going on. That's a good point. I hadn't thought that part through. Some of this is me processing on the spot, so just be aware of that. That's kind of how I think. Taxes is terrible for me. I'm usually like right on the deadline. If I have to think things through, I wonder if there's something with that, because if it requires processing thoughts in and making a decision, which a lot of emails are, right? So when you get an email, you are processing what the other person has said, you're determining what it is your response should be, and then you have to figure out the words to relay that. That's not a simple deal for the most part. Yes, and Carol's absolutely correct too. When you don't know what the next thing is. Thus, like, that's the whole GTD thing, right? Like, define the next action. Like, that's the one thing about that I think continues to stand out to me, is like, okay, what is the next physical thing I need to do for this task, right? That's something that's super important as well. So you might be onto something, Blake, there. Like, if it's something that requires me to stop and put some thought into it, like birthdays. I'm terrible at celebrating my wife's birthday, though I did good this year. Here a couple days ago was her birthday. I'm normally really bad at that, and it's because it's fairly difficult for me to decide what to do for her, and I need to take the time to process what to do for her, and I end up not deciding because I'm nervous about what I'll decide, and it's difficult to decide. It's boring to decide. And I don't want to think. Thinking's hard. I don't want to think. I just want answers. I think that's actually maybe why people get so hung up on like choosing the right tools. Like OmniFocus, Things, Todoist, Obsidian now. I think there's something with that, with people who want to, maybe that's what we should do. Like, people do like roasting of like PC setups and cars and such. Maybe we should like roast people's task management setups or notes setups. I don't really want to do that. I think maybe people struggle to pick a tool and stick with it because no matter what you do, you have to think and decide and choose. Sounds very productive. You have to choose what the next thing is. And that's not, like, that's the hard part, right? Which would mean that people get frustrated with it because they're not actually completing the tasks, right? And because they're not completing the tasks, they feel like it's the system's fault. Because it's so difficult for me to figure out what the next thing is, it's obviously OmniFocus is the problem. Cal Newport post. Recently in the defense of thinking also hit you. It's totally true. Some of the pro tip, if you ever get into streaming, the best thing you can do before you hit go live is go for a walk for about 15 minutes beforehand. Absolutely required, I think, if you want to be any good at this, because you have to think through your thoughts about the topic you're getting ready to stream about. The people who don't need to do that are the people who are primarily gamers on stream, like, because they have their game that they're going to play and they can come up with what they're going to do, usually on the spot, because it's different all the time. So like that, I feel like is significantly easier, but it's also a much bigger market, so you're not going to get as much traction that way. That's just my thought on it. But the people who do streaming that's about basically anything other than gaming, you really have to think it through ahead of time. But even some of the better streamers who are gamers, they do the same thing. They take time beforehand. Like some of the big ones like Shroud, Dr. Disrespect, Ninja, like those guys all take time before they start streaming. I think that's why, because you have to process your thoughts before you can do the work. And that's not fun. Like, unless you build the habits around it, it's difficult. This is why, like, not the episode we just recorded, but the one before for Bookworm, that's why one of the things that I wrote down was to set my upper and lower boundaries for creating things each day. And it's because, like, I'm trying to figure out what are those things that'll motivate me. And it hasn't worked 100%. It's helped me get a couple things out. It's helped me get, like, the newsletter back on track. It's helped me to plan better for these streams. But I haven't gotten to the point where I'm, like, kicking out the videos that I want to kick out. And it's because, like, I've got some of the, like, writing side of it figured out, but I haven't got, like, some of the video and editing pieces figured out. And I think that is because it is something that, like, writing is something I've done long enough that I feel confident in my ability to write well. I know that I have a long ways to go to be an excellent writer, but I'm confident in my ability to write well enough that people can resonate with what I'm saying. Video, I don't feel that way. I feel like I'm still very much a newbie when it comes to putting together video. Even this stream feels like I'm very much a newbie in putting this together. Now, I will say that streaming is forcing me to get better at it. And it's helping me to build the confidence in doing this, right? So I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Bit by bit. Slowly but surely, as the phrases go. So I'm slowly trying to figure out what are the motivators to me, but I think a lot of it has to do with, like, how to break the fear of releasing things. It just seems like that's a bigger part of it. For me, it's not that way for everybody, but for me, that's a lot of it. One of the things that Clear talks about here, schedule your motivation. Always feels like I mostly know what I'm doing. Got you fooled, Blake. I feel like I'm always, like, trying to figure it out on the fly. Scheduling motivation feels weird to me. I gotta adjust this. I keep playing with it. There we go. Because I feel like I'm talking over it instead of talking. And I know that the way I just set that up, it looks like I'm talking right over it. But he mentions, like, scheduling your motivation. And like, this is gonna get into, like, the whole deep work, put it on the calendar, time blocking thing. There's nothing wrong with this. I just think that it's very difficult for me to do this sort of thing given the work that I do. Because, like, for example, Best time for me to write is 8 to 8:30 because I'm usually getting to the office at 8. I don't normally have anybody that needs things until about 8:30, and that's because I've been a lot better about getting myself to my office without getting caught. Because if I get caught, it could be 45 minutes before I ever make it to my desk. I have had days where I don't get my coat off for an hour when it's winter, of course, just because I haven't made it to my office. So that's one side of it. I've been getting better about getting that time. I know that trying to do like some editing and video work like after lunch or over lunch is the best time, so I can get there, but it takes a lot of time to do editing and especially to learn it, right? Oh, you ordered an XL, Michael. Nice. Nice. There's a decent affiliate kickback on those things, so thanks for that. When you get into like tech stuff, there's a pretty decent kick, especially when it's stuff like over $200. So thanks for that. I love that Stream Deck. I've continued to learn a lot more about it. Even like the rig that I'm using today, my MacBook isn't doing anything other than giving me the display that you see. Where's it at? Right here. So that display is coming off of my Mac, but I'm actually running the whole thing from an iMac over here, which then goes into an encoder. So the rendering is happening over there now, but I'm controlling that from the Stream Deck WebSockets. So I'm controlling different computers and different encoders from this one little deck. It's kind of nuts. I figured out how to send API calls with it. It's crazy to me. Like hitting a button and having it just cycle through and do a whole bunch of stuff for you. It's crazy. I need to do a stream on it at some point. Just taking you through all the different pieces that I that I do, because it's kind of nuts what all's on it. So anyway, that's off topic. I find that like trying to set up time to do the things I don't necessarily feel excited to do. Like in this case, creating. I like making things, but I just think that it's easy for me to put it off. It is. And having dedicated time to work on things is a great idea, but I feel like the work I do makes that darn near impossible. Shortcuts outside of the keyboard. I like it. Single buttons that do things. It goes a long ways. It really does. At some point, I'll do like an overlay of like put the Stream Deck on screen, and then I'll put like OmniFocus or Obsidian up there and then show you what buttons I'm hitting and show you what they do. Maybe that's what we'll do on stream. But think about this. Like, okay, walk through. I gotta stand up again. Walk through like how my day works, right? So much of what I do is like supporting people, right? Like I'm gonna help some of my staff members who are on the other side of that door currently. I'm gonna help some of my staff members set up 1Password, okay? Nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing for me to be doing, and it makes my life and their life easier. But I never really know when they're going to need that help. It might be as soon as I send the email. It might be 3 days later in the afternoon. It might be as soon as I walk in the door on Tuesday mornings. I don't know when that's going to happen. I could separate myself and make myself not available and schedule time like what Clear is saying here. I could do that. But I find that trying to basically hide makes it somewhat impersonal in doing my job. So, I mean, I think you get the point. I've talked about this I don't know how many different times, and I don't want to be that guy that keeps saying the same stories and the same things over and over again. I try to avoid doing that. I'm very intentional about that. And what's the 5-second rule? Squirrel. The thing that I've been trying to do with some success is, and this is again with the Stream Deck, and I don't have this 100% set up yet, but you can set timers on the Stream Deck. So I can hit a button and it'll start counting down. What I want to be able to do is hit it again and have it pause, and then hit it again until it goes down, and then like double tap it or something to get it to reset. Maybe I have a different button that resets it. But what I want to do is try to like, okay, I'm going to spend 30 minutes writing today. And I can be interrupted as many times as I want, but whenever I come back to write, I got to start the timer again. Timers seem to do really well for me. Like if I have timers running, I don't want to deviate because I know that I'm supposed to be doing something during that time. So timers do help me. I know that they don't everywhere, but yes. Mel Robbins. Should I know this? Mel Robbins, the 5-second rule. Are you talking about like when kids drop things? What is a 5-second rule? You can trigger all sorts of stuff. You can set up multi-actions so that they do a whole bunch of things in succession with delays and such on it, Michael. So you could have all sorts of stuff. So you can have it to do a timer, and then when a certain time expires, it will. But I would probably just put in a delay. Like you wouldn't have to have a visual timer, but you can. You can have the timer on the deck. The 5-second rule, Mel Robbins. This is a thing. What is this? Carabiner is nuts. Between Carabiner and Better Touch Tool, it's a bit bonkers what you can pull off with those. What is this? The 5-second rule. If you're reading this, then you know exactly what you need to be doing in order to get what you want. That's not true. Knowing what to do will never be enough. It's not as simple as just do it. Because of the way your brain is wired, when your thoughts and feelings are at war and when there is a discourse between what you know you should be doing and what you feel like doing, your feelings are always going to win. If you don't feel like doing it, you won't do it. That's why you need the 5-second rule. And no, I'm not talking about the 5-second rule that relates to dropping food on the floor. And as long as you pick it up within 5 seconds, it's okay to eat. At least he calls that out. I'm talking about something that will literally change your life if you let it. That's a tall statement. It's a tool for hyperintentionality. First shared it 5 years ago on a TEDx. First discovered it 7 years ago. Before I worked for CNN, before I gave the TEDx talk. Before I had written one of the top selling books of last year. Blah, blah, blah. My husband had a restaurant business. Come on. Tell me what it is. The 5-second rule is something I developed to get myself to take action when I didn't want to. Am I ever going to get to this? So here's the one-liner definition of the 5-second rule. I should have just scrolled down for the bolded piece. If you have an impulse to act on a goal, you must physically move within 5 seconds or your brain will kill the idea. So if you have a goal of gaining more respect in the workplace, you have to raise your hand the next time you're in a meeting and you have a great idea. If you have a goal of losing weight, you can take action right now by researching healthy meal options and setting daily reminders on your phone that will prompt you to go to the gym. So you have to do this within 5 seconds. Is that the idea? It takes more than 5 seconds to find the important piece. Interesting. There's something to it, though. You're still talking about modifiers? I don't like I kind of gave up on like trying to go down the road of doing so many of those and just started putting everything in the Stream Deck. For a while I didn't do the hyper key thing with the caps lock. I know a lot of people do that. I have a lot of like command option, command shift hotkeys that I use for things, but some people are better at remembering those than I am. Smells like snake oil, the 5-second rule. Maybe. You know, there's you know what she's Mel, I assume is female. Yes. She's not wrong here, because like if you decide on a goal, this is actually part of my problem. I'm too good at this. If I have a goal and I see that goal, I need to act on it immediately, is what she's saying. That's my problem. That's what I do. Imagine all the bad ideas you have that you realize quickly are bad ideas. GTD 2-minute rule. It is kind of like that. Like act on it immediately. The more you think about things before you do it, the more likely you are to procrastinate. That's me too. I do that 100%. I am very, very likely to put things off if I psych myself out for it. And that's actually part of my thing too. Like that's part of like taxes is terrible for me in that sense, because I think it's a big, hairy, messy thing that I don't want to do. But whenever I finally bring myself to sit down and do it, it only takes me like 15 minutes to get all the stuff, because I don't actually do the taxes. I send it off to somebody else, and I still don't get it done, right? That's my issue. So, one of these days, we'll figure all this stuff out. But I'm slowly learning that I have to run a list without thinking it through, right? So I can't, like I have my list right here. I know you can't see that, but I have my list here, and I have to just like go through things and not hesitate, because this is the thing with ADD people, right? Transitions are killers, right? If I have to move from one task to another and I hesitate, I may not do it at all, and most likely won't. But if I can get started on it without thinking about it, I can be stuck on it for hours in a good way. You want to eat healthier. The more you think, you realize you need a PhD in nutrition. You make lists, and it does such a good job of getting it off your mind that you forget to use the list. That is a problem, too. That's why it has to stay open. Like, it has to stay here open the whole time, or it will not happen. Like, it has to stay here all day, despite my assistant being upset that he doesn't have room over here on the desk. Like, you have to keep it here. It's like this is the thing. Like lists, I will die if I don't have a list of things that I have to do today. But the moment I put it on the list, gone. Just gone. Apparently Google doesn't like it when you use the word kill, Kristen. I had to approve that comment. But it's so true. You're absolutely right. Transitions are the worst. So here's I can give you a little bit of like what works for me in that, because I'm with you in that if I have a list, it's off my brain. If I try to move from one thing to the next and transition from one thing to the next, I am easily lost. and will end up on YouTube rearranging stream gear. I'll end up with all sorts of stuff. It's fine, Kristen. Don't worry about it. It's Google. Whenever I make my list in the morning, which I'm not always doing, like I'll be completely honest with you and tell you that this is something that I get done maybe 90% of the time, but I do have, like, I didn't write lists at all for Saturday or Sunday. And I had to catch up my charts this morning when I came back to the office. Yeah, and I'm seeing a few things I haven't done here yet that I needed to do because some of the other stuff took too long. But what I do is, like, I write this stuff down in the list. And I do my best, and I am not great at this, but I do my best to go from one thing to the next. Like, one of these has made its way... How many times have I transferred this one? I need to update my content calendar, like the content that I'm working on. And I've had like what I'm working on for about 5 or 6 days, but I needed to like extend that. That way I know like what I'm working on over the next couple weeks. And I've been putting it off for about a week now. So like right now I have no idea what I'm doing next week, which is not good. But it's a thinking task, right? Like I have to sit down and just think. That's the kicker with it. So yes. Someone mentioned Mark Forrester. I feel like Mark Forrester has come up a number of times. Stupid thinking. Absolutely. Have we looked at Mark Forrester's stuff here? I don't think we've looked at this on stream before. I haven't kept up with him a ton. What is his site? I can't even find it. Wait, there's probably a famous person who's overlapping. I'll get there. Oh, that's why. He doesn't have his own domain. markforrester.squarespace.com. How do I mark something for Monday when I learn of it Friday? Like in the bullet journal? A work task I need to pick up when I get back. It goes on the monthly task list, and I put Monday's date on it. I don't know if I have any of those that I could show you right now. I've been doing a lot of like just do it right now stuff. Yeah, I don't have any examples of that, but if I have like this task and project list, I would put the dash, the date of when I want to come back to it. It's like, what is today? Today's the 24th. Let's say I wanted to look at it on Wednesday, so it's not tomorrow. I would put 26 next to it and then put the item after that. And then whenever I look through that stuff every morning, I'll see the number and then I'll transfer it to the daily log. That's what I do. Yeah, I was bad at the monthly, checking that every day until I forgot some things that I'd put on it. So like I know that I won't trust it if I don't put it there at all. So I make sure that I put everything there where it belongs, and then it's up to me to deal with it correctly. Why does Mark Forrester not have a domain? Does not seem like it's big enough to add to future logs. If it's next month, I'll put it there. Like a good example of that is we have an outdoor worship service coming up at church, and it is on Father's Day, so mid-June, right? Doing things month by month means that I don't have a lot of those tasks in the month of May, so they're not even there. But I've been putting them in the future log for June, and then I'll transfer it to the monthly log, set up that task and project list. Whenever I set up June, those items will go there, and then it'll be off to the races from there. It's all about the migrations, because then I have to see it and I have to decide about things step by step. Time management and personal organization. Your Bujo use fell apart in May. Yeah, vacation tends to do that. What's the forum? He has a forum too? It's on Squarespace. I don't like Squarespace. Squarespace needs to get better. That's the way I put it. Martin, the links won't go through. Here. I've learned that Google blocks them. And I can't get them to turn it loose. So if anybody figures out how to do that, you tried quotes? It's too smart for that. I think it'll let me do it. Is that what you're trying to post? So yes. I don't keep up with Mark Forrester. Does he have a feed for this? Net Newswire for the win. There's a new version. We'll do it later. We'll see if he has a feed for his site. I assume he does. Oh, wait. I might have my... Oh, yeah, I found it. He's got a feed. All right, done. I'll keep up with him now. Autofocus revisit. Predicting your day. What is autofocus? Autofocus system, or autofocus 1 as it was later called? What is this? I don't really know much about him at all. The autofocus time management system. There's not an English version? Or am I looking at it? What is the best way to reach my direction? What do you mean by, like, reach out to me? One of his algorithms for working through a task list. Autofocus system instructions from 2009. Oh, it's from a blog post. He just put it in a... Is this long? No. I don't know. Okay. Email? What email to send it to? Easy one is Joe at analogjoe.com. You'll get me. Is that what you're trying to do? Oh, maybe I should put something there. I'll write that down. I think there should be something there in like the members page, but I've been like changing up some of the back end of Analog Joe, so I have been working on it. So let me put something on there. There should be like a how to reach me. But yeah, joe@analogjoe.com is the easy way. I hope that helps. I'll look into this autofocus system too, just because it seems interesting. Mark Forrester. How to pursue all your goals. Willpower training. Predicting your day. Seems interesting. I've got so many, like, I've got a backlog of articles that I need to get through in NetNewsWire. Oh. Motivation, procrastination, and ADHD. We've had fun with this today. We've learned that Joe's bad at it, all of it. I was telling my wife when we were talking about this Saturday, I think we were talking about ADD and Adderall and how all of that's been going for me. And it seems like whenever... How did I explain that? Whenever I'm on Adderall, like whenever I've had it, it's easy for me to focus on things, but it almost puts me into robot mode. Not completely, because obviously, like, I'm on Adderall right now. Well, maybe. It's like starting to trail off. I took it at 9 o'clock this morning and didn't take a second one. Don't plan to take a second one. So whenever I do that, it seems like, yes, I have great focus, but I'm not always like super creative in the process, which is why I have to do like the thinking stuff beforehand. Because otherwise, if I, this is the part that's weird to me. If I'm on Adderall, I need to do all of that prep work. If I'm not on Adderall, I generally don't, because my brain moves so fast that I don't really have to process ahead of time. So it slows my brain down enough that I have to stop and think things through first, which I'm not used to doing. But it also like removes emotion from things as well. That's kind of one of the side effects that I think I deal with. It's not always normal, in that like whenever I take an Adderall and I'm, say, what would be a good example of that? Like whenever I'm running the AV equipment for a funeral, would maybe be a good example. If I'm on Adderall and I'm doing that, I don't really notice how the stories and the conversation of the deceased impact me. Like empathy isn't there as much. But if I'm off of it entirely, I tend to like feel everything, and I'm hyper empathetic, which is great in that case, but it also makes it hard to run equipment. So there's that. All this to say, it's weird. Still working it out. As far as like what I'm doing for motivation and procrastination, I'm doing my best to like make the lists and try to work on them without thinking things through. Because the moment I start thinking things, like we've talked about, it becomes a problem. So yes, it's a juggling act. Can I show you a tool that I think is kind of nuts that I've been getting into? Anybody heard of Companion? What's the URL here? Is it Companion.io? No. What is it? That's not it. Oh, it's on BitFocus. That's what it is. Bitfocus.io. Anybody seen this? Companion? This is because of the Stream Deck. All right. It lets you, well, it lets you create buttons for your Stream Deck for gear that is not supported by the Stream Deck. And it does tons and tons and tons of stuff. That's all contributions. I don't care about that. I want to see... Where is it at? I don't want that. I want to see... Where is it? I can't even see it. There's a link somewhere that tells me what it connects to, but I can't see it. Support list. Here we go. This is the bank of gear that is compatible with Companion. Okay, here, let's... What is the... That's not it. That's what it is. It ends up being a local server that you run. So, like, this is how I'm cheating my way through some things. So, like, this is connected to the Mac that's over there. But we can add connections and then build buttons for it. I don't even know. Here, let's do this, because the Hilo is what I'm using as an encoder right now. This might be dicey. Aji Hilo. So if I add this, I would have to put in the IP, but I don't know what that is. It says it's connected. It's on the same network. But once you do that, you can build buttons. So these are buttons. And then here, let me do this. Since we keep talking about Stream Decks, let me make this bigger. Okay, so let me bring this over now that it totally screwed with all that. All right, so this is the page that I'm looking at right now on my Stream Deck that has like some of the controls that I do. This is a deep rabbit hole. This is how I'm controlling that Mac over there from this Mac, because Companion lets me build these buttons, and then I can assign those buttons wherever I want on the Stream Deck. You with me so far? And then I can hit these buttons and they will do things on other machines. But the thing is, like, you can add tons and tons of actions to these. So Michael, kind of like what we were talking about with the Stream Deck and how you can build multi-step actions here, you can do that on Companion as well, but then it's not tied to just what you can do on the Stream Deck. But again, like, these are, like, there's tons and tons and tons of gear that this stuff is compatible with. They've primarily focused on, like, audio video, like cameras and live stream encoders, projectors, soundboards, YouTube in this case. I'm interested in it because I'm looking at buying a Yamaha CL5, I think is what it is, for the church. And then I could control that soundboard, some of the functions from the soundboard on the Stream Deck. It's kind of bonkers to me. Yeah, you can control some PTZ cameras from it. What was the other one? Yeah, I've got a Soundcraft somewhere that I've had connected to it before. Some of the Shure microphones and such. You can turn them on and off. Like, think about that, being able to mute. Can we flip screens so you can see the browser better? Oh, yes, sorry. Here we go. So yes, this is a lot of what is possible. Yeah, the Stream Deck's technically for church. I just use it for my own stuff. I have different profiles that I use for both things. Our church is very blessed, and we have a lot of gear. Obviously, OBS is in here. There's a ton. Oh, is that Grass Valley I saw? Yeah. We used to use one of those. We sold it, though. Anyway, this is primarily audio-video gear. But you can add each of these modules into this. Thanks for pointing that out, Michael. I was so excited I wasn't paying any attention to what I had going on over there. So you can build all this stuff in Companion. And then you can put it into the Stream Deck in here, if I go to the right place. So each of those buttons, obviously they don't have to be in the same order. I've put them wherever I want. You can move them around if you want, which is always kind of weird because then you can see it move around on the deck itself. Stream Decks. It seems like there are more and more productivity people getting into them. Yeah, let me show you. This is the one I use for Obsidian. Have I shown this before? Today note, my week note, my monthly note, inbox, Kanban, the forum, all sorts of stuff. Moving things, renaming them, pulling. But like you'll notice, I don't know if this will show up. See this? Yeah, that comes through. This bank, you notice like I've got that on all of them. It's because those are like my stream views. Because it's pretty common for me to be moving around and doing things on my computer, but then I've got to change scenes like I didn't do earlier. So then I have to be able to hit a button and come back to that setup to get what I need. More and more people means basically everyone you follow. Yeah, it kind of seems that way. It's like the hardware version of everybody talking about a new tool. That's what I've learned. There are a couple folks trying to get into this game of building like a Stream Deck type tool, but yes. How am I selecting which nodes to open? If I go back in there, this one is an Apple script actually, because it's different depending on what I'm doing. But ultimately it's opening a URL. Obsidian ://open $vault equals notes and file equals whatever the name of the file is. There's a plugin to add keyboard shortcuts for files. Maybe. That one's weird because I'm trying to change what I'm opening based on the date. The monthly one is the same. The today one, though, all it does is open Obsidian, hits Command T. That's all that is. So this is like that multi-action setup that I was talking about. Also, I'm aware you can't see my cursor. I learned about that in this new setup, and I don't know why you can't see my cursor. It's strange to me. Anyway, multi-actions. There's one that I have that I use this. Now, I need to rebuild this because I just made some things, and we need to get a Stream Deck made out of Obsidian. This is one that I built, and I didn't use it today, but because I've changed up some gear with the Rodecaster Pro, which we need to talk about at some point, and changing how I'm sending video from place to place, this doesn't actually work anymore. And all it does is it changes scenes, it sets it up to where the countdown timer starts, it sets the audio where it's supposed to be, and then it changes it, like fades it to all black, and then it fades it to the webcam view. So it does all of that for me. So really, I just hit start, and then I kind of walk around for a couple minutes and prep my thoughts, and then when it hits 0, I know that it's going to fade itself out, and it does all that stuff for me. Now, I had to do all that manually today, but this is what I would normally do. Just hit a button, and it does it all. But these delays, like you can set some pretty long ones. Yes. All sorts of stuff. Stream Decks. Use your finger and point. We'll figure it out. There's some cool stuff you can do with them. I haven't found the upper limits of it yet. I feel like I normally do find limits, But in this case, I haven't found it. All right, team. I got a handful of things I need to do before I go look at a house this afternoon, which I got to go look at in about an hour. What's going on this week? This week we have nothing going on for Analog Joe. So Wednesday is open. Okay? Nothing going on Wednesday. Friday, there's nothing going on because we just recorded Bookworm. So I haven't decided if I'm going to do an extra stream this week. I think what I'll probably do is spend some time doing some editing work because I need to get better at doing all that because of what we're talking about today. You get to go fly from Minneapolis to Denver. You're in Minneapolis right now? I'm waving to you. Yeah, so we'll be back. No, we will not be back next week. Note that. Next week, there is no stream. And it's because Monday is Memorial Day. So that would mean Mall of America. I only go there when I have friends that want to go there. People think it's like the end-all, be-all. And it's like, I don't ever do anything there. Like, I go because other people want to. That and IKEA. What was I going to say? I might pay attention to my Twitter if you aren't there already. I might do a stream on Friday to set up June's bullet journal because I'll need to do that. And we haven't done that on stream in a couple months or so. So we need to do that soon. What else? But I don't know if I'm going to have time for it or not. Some of it depends on how this house thing goes today. So, yes. Yeah, we'll get there, Derek. You're not feeling it right now. I love it. So, yes, pay attention to Twitter. Maybe we'll do something this Friday. If not, we'll be back on stream in 2 weeks at the absolute latest. But I'm sure I'll come up with a time and do something sooner. And then next Wednesday, so a week from this coming Wednesday, is when we get back into some Analog Joe stuff and start kicking off again. So this week is light, namely non-existent, but we might do something on Friday. That's what I'm trying to say. Sound good? Cool, cool. All right, team. Thanks for joining today. Say yes to the address. Absolutely. I don't think I have anything else. I think we're good. All right. You guys have a good day. Hopefully the house stuff goes okay today. And all sales, I'll see you in a couple weeks. And hopefully I'll see you before then. All right? All right. Bye, team.